Norrland dialects is one of the 6 major dialect groupings of the Swedish language. It comprises the dialects in most of Norrland, except those of Gästrikland and southern Hälsingland, where Svealand Swedish is spoken. Local dialects from Härjedalen and northwest Jamtland, which traditionally are counted as variants of the Norwegian dialect of Trøndersk, are also excluded, while Jamtlandic and other dialects of the region are considered to be true Norrland dialects. The border between Norrland dialects and Svealand Swedish runs through Hälsingland, such that the northern Hälsingland dialects are regarded as Norrland dialects and the southern ones as Svealand Swedish. An alternative delineation follows the southern border of Medelpad, the old northern border of the Swedish language in coastal Norrbotten, largely followed the eastern and northern borders of Lower and Upper Calyx parishes in modern Calyx municipality. Further, a vaguely defined linguistic border ran through Lappmarken from the northernmost point of Upper Calyx parish in an arc to the south of Porjus, then followed the Lule River to the border with Norway. Historical origins. Norrland dialects arose from the combined influence of the Old West Norse spoken in Trøndelag to the west and the Old East Norse spoken to the south. The westerly influences were notably strong in the centuries leading up to the Viking era. The shift to East Norse progressed through the Middle Ages, as Norrland gradually came to be more and more under Central Swedish influence in the modern era. Many of the older West Norse characteristics disappeared. The strong West Norse influences can still be seen today in the toponymy of Norrland in place names ending in -anga. Parish names such as Konanindal have West Nordic origins. The dialect of Norrbotten displays less West Nordic influence than other more westerly dialects. The greatest West Nordic, Norwegian, or perhaps least East Nordic, Swedish influence is found in Jamtlandic characteristics. As with other dialects, it is difficult to clearly define a unique set of characteristics for the Norrland dialects. The distribution of different features of the dialect have differing boundaries, which are described in the following summary of phenomena regarded as typical of Norrland dialects. Vowel balance. Words that were long spelled in Old Swedish developed weakened or dropped end vowels. Examples of words with weakened end vowels are Kasta and Backa. In dialects such as those of Jämtland and Västerbotten, where the end vowels are dropped, these words become cast and barik. Words that were short spelled have, however, conserved the original end vowel length. Examples include tala and comma. Vowel balance is also an important distinctive feature in the East Norwegian dialects. End vowel development in words has been dependent on the stem syllable length since the time of Old Swedish. This characteristic is known as vowel balance. The dialect of Medelpad is the southernmost of the coastal dialects which has vowel balance. In the Hälsing dialect, the endings are as in standard Swedish kasta, springer, etc. Vowel balance is particularly evident in the definite plural of nouns. Standard Swedish Hästarna is in certain northern dialects asta, while Dagana is Dagana. All of the Sami languages, particularly East Sami, have had similar systems of vowel balance since long before any Nordic languages were spoken in North Scandinavia. One theory that it put forward is that vowel balance emerged in the northern Nordic dialects as a result of the Scandinavization of the Sami people in the area, particularly the South Sami, from about 1300 to 1600. Smoothing. Words that were originally short-spelled have often undergone a process of assimilation of the stem vowel and ending. Examples include Fara and Vuku's theory and Skyrai. This phenomenon, known as smoothing, is found predominantly in the dialects from Upper Dalarna and Trøndelag northward. A and Thikel. The Old Swedish before the consonant cluster RTH has been preserved, while RTH itself became a retroflex flap, often referred to as a thick L. This is sometimes represented as a capital L, to differentiate it from the standard Swedish road cluster. Examples of this thick L include SVAL and AL. This phenomenon is shared with the Dalecarlian dialects and Norwegian, as well as the Swedish dialects in Ostrobothnia. Fronted SJ sound. In northern Norrland, the SJ sound is pronounced with the tip of the tongue against the alveolar ridge. This is a post-alveolar consonant represented variously as OR. This sound is sometimes merged with the TJ sound, a voiceless alveolo-palatal sibilant. In central Sweden and southern Norrland, the middle SJ sound is commonly used, described as a voiceless co-articulated palato-alveolar and velar fricative with rounded lips and a relatively closed mouth, represented in the International Phonetic Alphabet as the broad RS sound. A voiceless retroflex sibilant is used by many speakers in central Sweden and southern Norrland for the fronted SJ sound, with considerable variation between individuals. The back SJ sound is used in southern Sweden, in Finland Swedish and in English, where the distinction between the SJ sound and TJ sound is either lost and non-existent. The fronted SJ sound is used. Examples of this sound in English include the hushing sh in she, and the cluster as in chicken. Articles preceding proper nouns. Proper nouns in the argument position are preceded by an article, just like the weak forms of personal pronouns. For example, Hjalmar, Elisa, and Erik Igar. This is found in dialects such as those of Medelpad, manland, and Västerbotten. This pattern is uncharacteristic for Germanic languages, but similar to that of Romance languages, among others. Palatalization. The consonants G, K, and SK are pronounced as standard Swedish J, TJ, and SJ before front vowels. For example, Skojin and Ridgin. This is known as palatalization. The southern limit of this phenomenon runs through Upperland, vast manland, and Värmland. It is also found in Ostrobothnia and in a number of dialects in Norway. Loss of ending. In the present tense of strong verbs, the ending is lost. Norrland dialect speakers would say handbit as opposed to the standard handbiter and handspring as opposed to handspringer. This is another characteristic shared with the Dalecarlian dialects as well as a number of Norwegian dialects. End stress. The primary stress of compound words is often placed on the ending. For example, Navertik and Kaffepanna. This is characteristic of most Norrland dialects, and is also found in Upperland and Södertorn. Adjective-noun compounds. Compound words with adjectival prefixes are more common in Norrland dialects than in standard Swedish. For instance, a Norrland dialect speaker may say langhair as opposed to the standard det langaharet and granvera as opposed to det granavadre. This is also found in colloquial Svealand Swedish as well as in Finland Swedish. Subdivisions. Just as it is difficult to precisely define unique linguistic traits for Norrland dialects, it is also difficult to split the group geographically into various subdialects. Different traits are found in different areas. Nevertheless, the medieval parishes have played a large role in the subdivision of the Norrland dialects. Even those parishes that were organized later in the 1600s, such as Upper Calyx parish and Bertrask parish, have strong dialectal features. The Swedish language came to Lapmark in the 18th and 19th centuries as ethnic Swedes began to settle the area. They came from many different regions, and some even spoke Finnish or a Sami language natively. This resulted in a blending of both dialects and languages. Most of the Lappmark dialects thus lack such archaic features as the dative case and diphthongs that the dialects of the coastal parishes have retained. Nevertheless, the differences between the various Lappmark dialects can be considerable, depending on the heritage of those who settled in a given area. A notable amount of Sami loanwords have found the way into the dialects of Lappmark and the areas just to the south. For instance, the Siberian J is locally called koksig as opposed to the standard Swedish lavskrika. Below is a list of common subdialectal divisions of Norrland dialects. Calyx dialects. These dialects, known in Swedish as Calyx mal, are spoken in the medieval Calyx parishes. Like other dialects in Norrbotten, the Calyx dialects retain numerous archaic features. Many Old Norse diphthongs have been preserved, as well as archaic consonant clusters such as SJ, SDJ and LJ. The dative case is also retained, including following a preposition. Additionally, verbs at least partially retain their old plural forms. The Calyx dialect is further subdivided into Upper Calyx dialect, Lower Calyx dialect. One difference between these two local variants is that the old consonant clusters MB, ND, and N have been retained in Upper Calyx, but not in Lower Calyx. For example, the standard Swedish kam is KMB in Upper Calyx, but kap in Lower Calyx. Furthermore, the Upper Calyx dialect has more influences from Sami languages and Meänkieli than other local dialects. Luleå dialects. The Luleå dialects are spoken in and around the medieval parish of Luleå. They are also spoken in the easternmost parts of Luleå Lappmark up to near Vuollerim. These dialects may be further subdivided as follows: Lower Luleå dialect, Upper Luleå dialect, Rainier dialect. The Luleå dialects are known for, among other things, a rich inventory of diphthongs. The Old Norse I, O, and Oi are preserved, as well as E, I, O, and Oi. These dialects also have a number of vowels that differ from Standard Swedish. For example, Standard Swedish I becomes Oi, while Standard U becomes I, O, U. Pto dialects. The Pto dialects are spoken in the area of the medieval Piteå parish as well as in the southernmost parts of Jokkmokk municipality and in northern Arvidsjaur municipality in Pite Lappmark. These dialects also preserve a number of archaic features, such as conserved diphthongs in words like Aukenstein. The consonant clusters MB, ND, and eng are often retained, for example in kam. Unique to the Piteå dialects is that Old Swedish long a has become short a before n, but nowhere else. Thus, land, bat, settler dialects, the so-called settler dialects, comprise all the Swedish dialects in Lapland. Carl Hampus Dahlstedt geographically defines this dialect to those inland parts of Norrbotten where the Swedish dialects do not fit in with any of the relatively more clearly defined dialects of the coastal regions, due to the patchwork ancestry of the Swedish-speaking settlers that populated the area. One typical settler dialect is found in Arjeplog, which arose from a blending of Standard Swedish with the Piteå and Umeå dialects. There is also Sami influence on these dialects, such as the absence of the thick L, which is generally typical of Norrland dialects. Another area in which a settler dialect is spoken is Malmfalt in Northwestro-Bodnian. Northwestro-Bodnian is spoken in the northern parts of Västerbotten, primarily the medieval Skellefteå parish, together with a part of Pite Lappmark. Just like the coastal dialects of Norrbotten, Northwestro-Bodnian preserves numerous archaic features. The dative case is still used, not only after prepositions but also after certain adjectives and verbs. Old Norse diphthongs have been preserved in many local dialects, but have developed in different, unique ways. For instance, Standard Swedish aura can be ooyr, aayr, or aajr in various local dialects of Northwestro-Bodnian. Southwestrobotnian. Southwestrobotnian is spoken along the Ume River from Umeå to Tana and Sossel, including Bygdia and Homin. A dialect is spoken in Lycksele Lappmark, which is highly reminiscent of dialects spoken in Umeå, Vännäs, and Degerfors. These influences become less apparent approaching the Norwegian border, but are still strong as far as Tana, where an old Umeå substratum is evident. The local dialect of Sossel is influenced by Northwestrobotnian as well. Southwestrobotnian also preserves archaic diphthongs, for instance in bean and ooys. This is a characteristic that distinguishes Southwestrobotnian from the Nordmaling and Bjurholm variants of the Manland dialect to the south, as well as a shared feature with Northwestrobotnian. One difference between South and Northwestrobotnian is that in Southwestrobotnian, ag is often inserted between the old diphthong o and a following an a or thick l. For example, Southwestrobotnian oga is a ui in Northwestrobotnian. Transitional dialects between Manland and Västerbotten. These dialects, intermediate between Southwestrobotnian and the Manland dialect, are spoken in Nordmaling and Bjurholm as well as Trøndersk. These dialects are similar to the dialect of Nolaskogs, such as in the change of Old Norse hv to gv. Manland dialects. The Manland dialects are spoken in Manland and Asel Lappmark. The dialects of Asel and Vilhelmina have largely retained their Manland character while still developing into their own. One exception is Fredrika Parish, which developed of speech closer to Standard Swedish as a result of lying near major immigration routes from Manland. The dialect of Dikanes in Vilhelmina municipality is a transitional dialect between Manland and the dialects of Lycksele Lappmark. The Manland dialects may be further subdivided as follows: dialects of Asel Lappmark, Vilhelmina dialect, Nolaskogs dialect, dialects of Härjedalen, Medelpad. The Medelpad dialects are spoken in Medelpad, with the exception of the westernmost parish of Havharo, where the Hogdal dialects are spoken. In comparison to other Norrland dialects, the Medelpad dialects are relatively uniform. The most important outer isogloss is the one with the Hälsingland dialects to the south, which defines the limits of the vowel balance characteristic of Norrland dialects. One characteristic that distinguishes the Medelpad dialects from other nearby dialects is the pronunciation of both short and long I and y as the same. The so-called VBI. In Borgshö and Torp, y is pronounced as I, while o is pronounced closer to e. This trait is also found in the Hälsingland dialects and in parts of Härjedalen. Other traits are shared with the Manland dialects, like the thick n sound after long vowels in words such as van and main. In the northernmost parts of Medelpad, the dialects show notable Jamtlandic influence. A characteristic typical for dialects of coastal Medelpad is short u in place of standard o. Jämtland. The Jamtlandic dialects comprise the dialects of Jämtland, with the exception of Upper Frostviken, where the so-called Lid dialect is spoken. These dialects are to a greater extent than other Norrland dialects caught between easterly and westerly linguistic influences. Centuries-old cultural and linguistic ties to Norway mean that many westerly linguistic traits that have long since disappeared in the coastal dialects are preserved in Jamtlandic. For example, the vowel u in words such as bu and ku. Jamtlandic, like other Norrland dialects, also retains the archaic diphthongs of Old Norse. Hogdal dialects. These dialects are spoken in Havharo and Yttre Hogdal. Hälsingland dialects. The commonly accepted isogloss between Norrland dialects and Svealand Swedish runs through Hälsingland. This area, however, is a typical transition region. From a Svealand standpoint, there are reasons to define the isogloss as coinciding with the southern border of Hälsingland. From a Norrland standpoint, there are alternative reasons to define it as coinciding with the southern border of Medelpad, which would fit with the southern limit of Vowel Balance. Included in the Hälsingland dialects are the Hälsingland dialect and the Pto dialect. Norrland dialects today, as modern society has grown increasingly more fluid and interconnected, genuine local dialects are on the decline. In Norrland as in many other parts of the world, nevertheless, there often remains an unmistakable local character of the language, both among those who speak the pure dialect and among those who speak the regional standardized language. But aside from characteristic peculiarities in intonation, there are certain grammatical traits that seem likely to survive, e.g., the infinitive master, present tense forms such as han gar and han roper, and the uninflected predicative in a statement such as dom trot. Documentation and preservation. Nearly every small community traditionally has its own distinct dialect, while the larger towns have had, for obvious reasons, greater linguistic influence. How well documented various dialects are these days is largely dependent on the work of a host of local enthusiasts, as well as some academic research in the area of Nordic languages, such as the series Svenska landsmål och svensk folkliv by Professor J. A. Lundell at Uppsala University, where the Swedish dialect alphabet was used beginning in 1910 for the writing of various local dialects of Swedish. In many areas, the genuine dialects are nearly extinct, but a few others have achieved near official status. One such example is Jamtlandic, which is taught in a relatively well-developed written language to schoolchildren, as has a wide variety of literature both in written and audio format.